Everything about this episode struck me as it being a second pilot.
Well, I was going to say, I loved them opening on another birth.
Yes.
Just like the pilot.
There were so many echoes to, I mean, there were echoes back to Game of Thrones, like we have, Varys's little birds. We now have the No-Tongue Gang. We have Aegon becoming a new Joffrey, a new blonde prince that everyone hates. Mm-hmm. And there's a new paternity drama that's unraveling via hair color. Mm-hmm. But specifically about House of the Dragon and that first pilot, this reintroduction, even to characters we know, like Alicent, Rhaenyra, and Daemon, this felt like we were meeting them as POV characters, like in the Game of Thrones books. Mm-hmm. And everyone who branches off from them, all of these B and C list characters, are now in the context of those three pillars. They become their allies and lackeys. And instead of it being this greatest hits or events of a single family, now I feel like we have intersecting plot lines of individual characters. This really felt like old school Game of Thrones to me. Even though we met 7 kids and 100 new adults this episode, I felt like it was, to quote the Condell interview, in that rhythm again.
Sure.
Did you guys like this episode as a House of the Dragon episode? Did you like it as a Game of Thrones episode? How did it hit you?
I mean, it just felt, it was hard because it really did feel very different to me compared to the others, partly because of the actors, but also, like you're saying, the way that it was structured and how it moved along through time. So it really just felt like I was starting a new show, which at first I was a little frustrated with, but having that context is a bit helpful for me. So it just felt like season 2 of House of the Dragon or something, or like another Game of Thrones spinoff. Like, it didn't feel quite like House of the Dragon so far, and it didn't feel quite like Game of Thrones, but closer to it, I guess.
And did you like this? If you think it's a new show?
Yeah, definitely. Like, I liked the episode, but it's been an adjustment period for me, I think.
Sure.
Mostly,
Tristan?
I just miss Millie Alcock, but it's fine. That's fine.
I honestly didn't find it as jarring as I feared I might. I was worried how I might sort of take to our new leads, but I think they are. I mean, they were excellent. I thought.
Oh, yeah,
I didn't really have any sort of a re-entry period at all. I feel like they didn't really miss a beat. And what differences there were in their characters made sense because 10 years on,
right.
It feels like Rhaenyra has sort of reined herself in a little bit. Certainly not sexually, but in terms of the way that she sort of conducts herself in front of the council. She has carved out a true role for herself. Mm-hmm. The same way that it feels like Alicent is a lot colder and more calculating now.
Oh, yeah.
Because she's had to be if she's, essentially alone up there, and if she feels like she doesn't have allies. Now, we know that's not true, but she certainly doesn't have as many as Rhaenyra might. Right. Or if they're not allies, people who are interested in Rhaenyra in some respect. And so it sort of the direction that their characters have gone makes sense 10 years on.
Yeah.
And so what initially felt like, well, wait, our character wouldn't say or do that. But at this point, 10 years in, it makes sense that they might behave the way that they are now. So it's not so different that it's like, well, this doesn't make sense. Or it is different, but it's not in a way that feels unearned.
Right. Yeah, like the person you are in your late teens, early 20s is not the same person you are in your late 20s, early 30s. So it makes the changes in the characters make sense, and I believe it. It's more that, why are you laughing at me?
Unrelated point, Maggie and I met each other 10 years ago yesterday.
Yes, we did. I'm glad that we're not the same people. No, but... So that is kind of funny.
And I met Tristan even before that.
Yeah, you did. So now the characters are like our age compared to
I'm the exact same. I'm a static character.
Anyway, the changes make sense and I believe them, but it's still a bit of an adjustment. I mean, even the way that the 2 to 4 year time jumps were an adjustment at the beginning of the season. So, it's fine.
So one of the things that really stuck out to me is that this episode and the first episode are both directed by Miguel Sapochnik, who is the other showrunner for House of the Dragon Season 1. And traditionally, we know him as the guy who does the huge battle episodes in Game of Thrones, whether it's Hard Home, Battle of the Bastards, Watchers on the Wall. I believe he did The Long Night.
Nice.
But in both of the episodes he's directed for this show, be it the pilot and this one, have been quieter episodes. They've had moments of action, but they're nowhere near where you'd think you'd deploy a guy who's that good at action.
Yeah, we haven't had any battle episodes yet.
Well, there was that bit at the Stepstones, but even that was like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So I scrolled back through the House of the Dragon pilot, and I found a lot of fantastic echoes with this episode, which I think kind of sells that point of this being a second pilot. So both episodes have a traumatic birthing scene with the death of the mother and eventual death of the child, and a dragon cremation. In both, you have it sort of visually defined by the blood of the Targaryen woman. You have Emma on the bed and Rhaenyra trailing blood through the floor of the Red Keep.
Oh, that was brutal.
Both
Just
episodes,
like a slug.
it was terrible, wasn't it? But I
mean, amazing.
Yeah, it was
I
great.
loved it.
It was great characterization. It was just the like visible pain while she was going through it was incredible.
Yeah.
Both episodes have a mother's fretful interactions with their kids and their husband about their future and their past. Again, you have Emma talking to Viserys in the pilot, and in this episode, you have Laena talking to her kids and talking to Daemon.
Yeah. Well, and Emma also talks to Rhaenyra in the pilot.
Exactly.
About her role as a princess and all that.
Both episodes have sort of staged faux combat turning deadly because of spite and ego. In the pilot, you have the tournament, and here you have the training scene in the yard. And in both, Kristen Cole is involved, and the tide of that fight is turned by a kick. In the pilot, it's Daemon kicking Kristen in the chest, which makes him fall down, and that's when it really gets down and dirty. And here, Kristen advises Aegon to kick the other kid, and that's what turns it deadly, and then the adults get involved.
Wow.
Both episodes have an unhinged noble with a private army. In the pilot, it's Daemon and the Gold Cloaks blowing through King's Landing. Here, it's Larys mobilizing his no-tongue assassins. And both episodes have a foreboding visit to a dragon pit via a young Targaryen. It's Rhaenyra in the pilot, and here it's Aegon.
Wow.
And those are the heirs. That's the balance of they are both the possible heirs.
Look at that. That's great.
Time is a flat circle.
I love that. Yeah, I mean, I definitely saw the parallels, but I hadn't thought to do that direct comparison.